I just did it that way to show you my new t-shirt. And I'm going to do the whole Fez Night just like this. I really like this shirt. It features the TARDIS, which is from Doctor Who. Oh yeah, I got started. I already forgot something. Okay, I'm gonna endeavor to make this a short Fez Night, to not keep you. I don't know, man. There's something wrong with the photo booth on here. It looks so choppy. Well, hopefully it'll still come out. God, it's hot in here, man. I'm very uncomfortable. Well, I won't be drinking hot coffee or tea today. I have a nice, cold, refreshing, fizzy drink. All right, that'll help me get started. I was going to say, guess there's nothing else for me to say. All right, time to don the fez. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm finally beginning to accept how much I'm going bald. Well, no, I'm not accepting it. One of the few things Lisa, probably the only thing Lisa got right when she spoofed me, is one time she depicted me going through a major effort of rearranging my hair to try to hide my baldness. And that's the sort of thing that I find funny. A while back, because it's based on something that's true. And the last time this idiot said I mentioned his name like a million times, so I won't mention his name. But one creepy old man had me doing belly laughs. I mean, I was busting up. And I mean, for me to watch something and to laugh out loud, genuinely, is a rare thing. And so he was. I don't know if you guys remember a while ago that I posted a picture of my elementary school photograph. And Frank the Mountain, by the way, made a really great response to that with Fine Citizenkong. And and then Jeff depicted me. He put a penis on my head, which Jeff is really, I mean, taking a small child and photoshopping a penis on his head, that's pretty sick. I think you could be arrested in some states for that sort of thing. So anyway, this grumpy old man, he remembered how I used to talk about how cheap my father was, and so in the elementary school picture, which God, we all look back and we go, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that was cool back then. You know how fashion is, and that is if you're a faithful follower of a fashion. There's some people that just completely ignore fashion. They'll wear work boots, jeans, and a plaid shirt ever since they were born. It never changed. And there was that one period during the grunge movement that it was actually cool. So if you stand still long enough, things will catch up to you. Of course, then they'll pass you by. But anyway, so I'm wearing I guess this sort of neckerchief thing. It's like a piece of cloth. Like a not quite a scarf, it's too narrow. And it was wearing around my neck underneath my collar, and it has like a little ring you push up that holds it in place. And Cyber9, I mentioned the grumpy old man's channel name, his handle. He said that my old man was too cheap to buy me a tie, so he grabbed a napkin and a napkin ring and put it around my neck. And I thought that was genuinely funny. Genuinely. Because it used things to satirize me that were true. Now, the other things, he just makes up lies. Or maybe it's just unique to him. I don't know. He just says stuff that only comes from him, and I've never heard it from anybody else. So, anyway. Yeah, he's not a nice person. But neither am I. No. All right. Time to don the fez. Greetings, fellow citizens. This is Citizen Kong, and welcome to another Fez Night. Tonight's Fez Night shall be called Ramalama Fez Night. You know, I kept thinking that I already did that one before. I did a search, I didn't find it. I endeavor to come up with new and better and sillier names for Fez Night. That creepy space monkey. Should I wait till later? Yeah, speaking of titles of Fez Night, that creepy space monkey is back. And he said, because I called it Fez Night is for Dummies, and he said, oh, you should have named it Fez Night for Dummies to reference those series of you know, they're not exactly self-help books, but you know, Windows for Dummies, blah, 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 you know, instructional manuals or something that are supposedly easy to follow. And yes, that crossed my mind. The reason why I titled that video Fez Night is for Dummies is because it was a response to Jerry Mahoney's request. Well, not exactly a request. He was berating me and chastising me and calling me names for not doing a Fez Night. And Jerry, you're still my friend, even though that thing with Big Sherl and all that. You know, it's all water under the bridge, right? And I intentionally called it Fez Night is for Dummies, just to say that people that watch Fez Night are dummies. Sorry. You know what's even worse is the idiot that makes Fez Nights. Let's see, more about Space Monkeyist later. I know you love being talked about, Space Monkeyist. Yeah, I've been going through a little phase here. I ran out of TV shows to watch. One of my side jobs, the woman there, I asked her, she came up with some design, it looked very, very 60s, very hip, 60s, kind of pop art kind of thing going on. And I said, do you watch Mad Men? Because in the course of Mad Men, he's already gone to where the Beatles have released, oh God, what album did Tomorrow Never Knows come out on? I know I love the Beatles, but I'm not like a Beatles expert. Anyway, there was a scene in Mad Men where I guess his much younger French Canadian wife tells him to listen to this album, and I think, was it on Revolver? Tells him to give a listen to Tomorrow Never Knows, which is basically symbolic of all the changes that are happening. I mean, you know, Don Draper is going to be shocked, or I don't know if he's going to be shocked, but it's this sort of cultural shift, and it was seen in advertising. I mean, which advertising, I would say, to me is an art form, and good ads are definitely art. And this whole thing with the shooting in the theater in Colorado, where was it, Aurora? People were talking about, you know, blaming the violence in cinema for spurring people to commit violence. And you hear a lot of right-wing talk, people on the right, like L. Brookman, hate Hollywood because, you know, Hollywood is run by liberal Jews. Which is one of the reasons I love Hollywood. More on the Jew thing later. But in the course of taking some art history classes and philosophy classes and things like that, I never gave it much thought before. I didn't really become really interested in art till sometime after high school. Really, I mean, I liked art, but I didn't really think too much about it because I thought, since I can't draw, you know, I mean, I just, you know, the thing about artists draw. You know what? I did start taking photography at a pretty young age. So actually, my dad gave me my first camera at 6. So yeah, I'll take that back. When I started realizing photography was an art form, then I started having an artistic outlet. But the whole thing about art, I thought like people like, what's that guy's name? The guy that splatters stuff. Who took his paintbrush and splatters, or cubism, or God, it'll come to me later. I'm just having a brain fart on that one. Um, God, you know who I'm talking about. It'll come to me later. Anyway, I thought modern art and all that stuff was crap. I don't understand. I don't get it. Classical art too, like the statues and those Renaissance paintings. They didn't really appeal to me, except for Hieronymus Bosch, his triptych of heaven and hell and paradise, etc. I found very interesting, but most stoner types love that sort of thing anyway. Oh yeah, and Escher, yeah. Um, Jackson Pollock, he's the guy that spattered paint on canvas. Now I love that stuff. I truly do. Anyway, getting back to the shooting, I embraced the philosophy, which I believe is true, and you hear it. It's a cliche that art reflects life. Art is like the canary in the coal mine. That is the thing that's affected first. When we see violence in cinema, it's a reflection of our society. If people didn't already crave violence, they wouldn't pay money to go see it. And it's a chicken or the egg thing. I mean, even from the first, probably some popular plays where, like Uncle Tom's Cabin or something like that, implied violence if there wasn't any actual violence in it. But then, as soon as cinema came around, the early cinema, there was depictions of violence in that. And face it, when man was drawing paintings in caves, like in Lascaux? They depicted hunting, and it was just a reflection. They were talking about what they did that day, in their paintings. And so, if you take it to its logical conclusion, people do stuff and then they make art about it. It's not the other way around, okay? People, idiots. The concept of the canary in the coal mine. Coal miners used to. There was a real danger of digging down and encountering methane gas or natural gas, and which would kill them. And so they would bring a canary down there with them in a cage or whatever. And if the canary died, because the canary, being so small, would be the first thing to be affected. And so when the canary died, they knew to get out of there because there was natural gas escaping, which natural gas does not have an odor, or methane does not have an odor. When you smell gas in your home, that's something that they add to it to give it a smell, so we can detect that there's gas leaking. So the notion that we're going to blame Hollywood or blame the script writers or blame novels or everything, And in some cases, though, you have to question certain people that are drawn to ultraviolence. I wouldn't blame. Well, there's something could be said that perhaps the person that creates this kind of art might be depicting some sort of sickness, but a good artist, is the canary in the coal mine. He's the signal. He's the warning signal that we look at what the art is what he's doing, and we should think about what's really going on in society. There was a big controversy over that. There was a artist that did I think it was a photograph called Piss Christ, that depicted a crucifix being dipped in a glass of urine. And, and you look at the social movements and things before he did that art, there was things going on about people questioning the church. Atheists were becoming much more vocal, et cetera, et cetera. So there became a big questioning of religion and a rejection of Christianity in itself, already happening in society. And then the right, people that don't understand art were blaming the artist, saying he should be crucified and dipped in piss. I don't know. Did Rush Limbaugh say that? No, I don't know. So anyway, what did I start talking about? Oh yeah, the woman at where I was working came up to me and said, when I asked her about watching Mad Men, she said, "Yeah, I've watched some of that." She worked in advertising, so somebody recommended it to her. And then she kind of stopped, as you watched Damages. I said, "No, I haven't." And I remember when Damages came out, it was like, I didn't find that too appealing. Face it, I'm sexist. I enjoy watching things that I can relate to on some level. So, female lawyers, I don't relate to, and yeah, I sort of like some law programs. But anyway, she looked me in the eye. She made me like, look at me. You must watch the show. You must watch it. And she's really always like a laid back lady, kind of like, well, not laid back, but very like quiet and very formal and very rarely. I've rarely seen her smile, and kind of like my ex-girlfriend. Did I say that? And last girlfriend I had, just a long time ago. Anyway, she said, you have to watch this, which I thought was really out of character for her, being so like, you have to watch this show. So I started watching it, and I became hooked. It's a really, really good show, and the way they tell the story, it unfolds in a very interesting way, unusual way. I would not say it's predictable until you start understanding, when you go into like fourth or fifth season, then you start seeing like, you're watching stuff, you think this is going to happen, then you realize that the writers are deliberately misleading you. But it's still good. It's still entertaining, Anyway, I was thoroughly enjoying that, but I ran out of episodes of that to watch. I'm all caught up. They're going to end that show this season. And I'm caught up on Breaking Bad, which is still excellent. And this is going to be their last season. And Weeds looked like they were going to stop, but then they came out with one more season, so I'm assuming this is their last, and that's still good. And so I've all caught up, watched all those, and I'm watching other shows, but I'll talk about that later, and or some other Fez Night. Ran out of stuff to watch, so I went back and started watching movies, and I'm watching, the old standby when you're tired. For me, when I'm tired, and I just want to be entertained and I don't want to think too much, I like watching horror movies, but not those like I don't know what. The really ultra-violence ones, like the modern ones, like that one where the people are being tortured and the guy has to saw his arm off. It's called Saw or something like that. And what was the movie Hellraiser? Movies like that. That's not too modern, but that was sort of the beginning of these really, strange, twisted type horror movies, which I've watched some of them. What was it? Devil's Rejects. My brother got to watch. I took him to see that on his birthday. He wanted to see that years ago, and God, I wish I could wash my mind to some of that stuff. I see the appeal, but I'm a little, So I appreciate the classic stuff. So I watched a British film called Circus of Horrors, which was interesting. It's about a plastic surgeon that escapes to France because he mutilated his patient's face, and then he ends up doing plastic surgery on female criminals and escapees or whatever, prostitutes and thieves and killers, makes them beautiful, and they become part of his circus. So it's a pretty implausible story, but and some really, really bad acting. But I watched it all the way through. I found it entertaining. Oh, plus an escaped gorilla in a really, really awful, a man in a gorilla suit. Really bad. And The Tomb of Ligeia, which is based on an Edgar Allan Poe story. And I believe it's a short story, because he mostly wrote short stories. And that was good. Vincent Price. And I thought it was well done. And the storyline was interesting. So I'm going to go back and watch more of those. I remember The Pit and the Pendulum, watching that when I was a kid. And Burn, Witch, Burn, which is another British film. And I think it was, when it was released in England, it was called Night of the Eagle. That is, for a horror film, that one was pretty top notch. I mean, the acting was pretty was decent. And especially the photography. Photography was really well done. And some really, shot in glorious black and white. And right now I'm almost finishing a movie called Black Death, which is a more modern film, which is kind of interesting. And the thing is, for me, I'm rooting for the witches in that one. because the Christians in this are depicted, they're just awful. It's like in, the age of the bubonic plague and all that, and these guys, these people are out there looking for witches, and they're going to torture them and make them confess and stuff, and they come to this village where they're looking for a necromancer, which is somebody that brings the dead back to life, and the necromancer happens to be this beautiful blonde woman, and their village has been safe from the bubonic plague. It has not been touched. And they argue that the bubonic plague is a punishment brought on by the Christian God against Christians. And since they have nothing to do with God or Christianity, that they're safe. And I don't know, normally, I don't like that witchcraft, black magic kind of stuff. I mean, I find it interesting in movies and all that, but this stuff mainly gives me the heebie-jeebies because there are people out there that really believe in such stuff. I had an ex-roommate that was a self-proclaimed Satanist, and the man could not be trusted. Could not be trusted. And would lie, cheat, and steal because he lived under the philosophy that all that mattered was himself. And Satanism, at least modern Satanism, is a form of, extreme self-centeredness. I can't. What is the word? The Greek story of the man who stared into a narcissism. Yeah, it's a almost sick form of narcissism. Where most narcissists are just wrapped about themselves, but this narcissism also adds the rule of not caring about doing harm to others. Because if somebody can be harmed, it's their fault because they're weak. They're weak or stupid and deserve to be taken advantage of. Yeah, so where am I going? Okay, about ready to wrap this up. I talked about the horror movies, recommendations if you like those old classic horror movies, and okay, about Space Monkeyist. Okay, Space Monkey is major creep, He just gives me the heebie-jeebies. He's come back as Snarfalakalakalakabus or whatever, that character from Sesame Street, but it's Space Monkeyist. Because Space Monkeyist can't help but ask questions about my penis. And that's why I blocked him in the first place. I kept Snarkaluphagus around because he seemed to be trying to behave himself. Plus, Eileen thought the character was so cute, and she would ask me not to block him. Anyway, he asked if Dr. Bender and Citizen Kong and myself were circumcised. And then Jeff popped in and said, of course, because he's a Jew. Okay, as much as I defend Judaism, I'm working for a Jewish guy right now, which I think is great. I like him, I like his wife, and I like his kids. And I've always been fascinated by the idea of a people who have been kicked out from country to country to country. If that had happened to anybody else, these people would have been scattered. But somehow their cultural bond is so tight that no matter whether they're living in East Europe or the Middle East, they still remain Jews. And they can look like an Arab, or they could have red hair and freckles. It's funny that my parents, I'm Protestant and proud of it. Not practicing, I don't go to church anymore. But I love the notion of Protestantism. I loved what Martin Luther came up with, who went against the Catholic Church. I love all that. Even though Martin Luther was an anti-Semite, he blamed the Jews for the crucifixion of Christ, which I disagree with. It's the Romans that did it, Anyway, I won't go into that story. But yeah, I find that culture, I find that the thing that you look at what people of Jewish faith or lineage have brought to society, Albert Einstein, all those great comedians, the Marx Brothers, even the Three Stooges. Brian Epstein, who managed the Beatles, who happened to be a gay Jew. Stephen Fry, another gay Jew. Anyway, yeah, I'm reading Stephen Fry. I'm like this much close to finishing the end of it. And I know I've been reading it in bits and pieces, but I'll tell you, man, it's much more entertaining reading that than trying to slog through Ulysses, which is what, going on 10 years now? So, anyway, this whole anti-Jew thing. And, it makes me think of where the motivation is to basically persecute and hate the Jews. Now, we can talk about, go all the way back to the beginnings where, Egypt and the Jews, supposedly, some scholars say that isn't exactly true, but the story is that the Egyptians enslaved the Jews. And, but that's not entirely accurate, what some scholars say, and I tend to believe them. But the story is important. It's very important. But if we move forward to the Middle Ages, England was one of the first countries, I think the only European country, to kick all the Jews out, kick them all out. And then I think later it was under Henry VIII. I'm not sure. Later, they changed their policy and they said they welcomed the Jews back. And there was a thing about Christians, which I wish Christians would practice this. It was a thing called usury. And what usury means is that you cannot borrow money or loan money for profit. Okay? You can't charge interest. You can't do any of that. And it's, I think, as a liberal / nearly communist, but more socialist, I think it's a great idea. I like that notion of usury. Of course, Christians have long ago abandoned that. But back when they were devout Christians and they practiced usury, the loophole was they got the Jews to do it. So traditionally, the Jews owned the pawn shops and the money lenders and all that sort of stuff, because the Old Testament has no code against that. Jesus Christ is the one that introduced the notion of usury, and I believe. Anyway, it's a Christian idea, not a Jewish idea. So therefore, the Jews got a lot of the hate, because of course it's natural for us to hate the Jews. I mean, not natural to hate the Jews. It's natural for us to hate money lenders and banks. Okay? And then again, there's also that Christian thing, but a lot of the people that dislike Jews don't call themselves Christians, but that's the beginning of it, that they blamed the Jews for crucifying Christ. And yes, it was the Pharisees, their leaders, that said, hey, do us a favor here. Go went to the Romans and asked them to, that's my little alarm. It means that the dryer stopped. Went to the Romans and said, kill this guy for us, because we don't like what he's talking about. He's bucking the system. He's going against our establishment. And but Jesus Christ himself was a Jew, and so was all his followers. Until later, there was, St. Paul or something. They went out and started trying to recruit Gentiles. And the neat thing that they did to recruit Gentiles is they took away the circumcision rule. And that way, you didn't have to be circumcised, to become Jewish. That basically opened the doors for a lot of people, because to be circumcised as an adult male in those days was a really risky proposition, even though I guess some men did do it. But very, very risky. So, the hatred of Jews, the anti-Semitism. I see it in the form many times of the anti-Zionist, okay? Now, the idea that they're completely against that there should be a nation of Israel, that I guess somehow it was done, by underhanded tricks and everything. But the way I look at it, it's sort of like karma after what they went through under the Nazis. And I don't care if you're going to deny it. I saw Tom Kennedy say, look at those are regular cremation ovens. There's no way you could have killed that many Jews. There weren't that many Jews killed. It's bullshit. They didn't cremate all of them. You're an idiot, But when you look at those films, they show it. It's filled with corpses, those places where the bodies were burned. Filled with corpses. And I've heard firsthand experience from a guy I used to work for that was there during World War II in the European occupation, when they rolled up to a prison camp. It was in the dead of winter. They saw the people starving. He saw somebody die because a soldier because these people have been starved so long, one of the soldiers gave, out of the goodness of his heart, he thought he was doing a good thing, gave this prisoner something to eat, the Jew that was held captive. I'm assuming he was Jew. He might have been Polish or whatever, but I mean, gypsies and gays, they were all, put in the concentration camps. The man died from shock to the system of having something like food when he'd been without food for so long. And there was a spot where there was no snow. There was this large, very large area where there was the snow was melted. There were every place, snow was everywhere except for this one spot. And that was because the heat from the decaying corpses was melting the snow in that patch. So, it upsets me when I hear Holocaust deniers. But this is the United States. In Europe, many parts of Europe, you can be arrested for being a Holocaust denier. It's funny, in the country of Israel, you can't be arrested for being a Holocaust denier. But in Britain and in Germany you can. And I don't know about France, but I know Britain and Germany definitely. And in the United States, no, it's not a prisonable, is that a word? Prisonable offense? And then this thing, the anti-Zionist that says, so I don't know, I think it's payback. They deserve this place, okay? I say give it to them, okay? So, many liberal types, my sister is one of them, that is really upset. And to a certain level, I'm upset by it, the treatment of the Palestinians. And it's always the same. The oppressed become the oppressor, okay? And they need to dial it back. They need to treat the Palestinians more fairly. But the very notion that the Jews should completely pull out and give up on the idea of having their own nation entirely, I completely disagree with. And face it, a lot of these anti-Zionists, they don't care about the Palestinians. Do you hear the same group of people crying about, how the white man, the Europeans, displaced the indigenous people on this continent? No, you'll never hear them cry about that. No, their motivation is because they're anti-Semitic. God love them. Hey, I won't take away anybody's right for hate, but it is an awful thing. And look what hate does. You have that shooting in that Sikh temple. And the stupid, why don't they, I don't know, it's kind of like this strange idea, and it's awful. I mean, you think it could be kind of funny, because I had this idea of like a PR campaign where the Sikhs going, hey, we're not Muslims. But if you read between the lines, it's like, don't shoot us, shoot the Muslims. The stupid friggin' rednecks, they see some guy in a turban, and this just shows how ignorance and hatred can go hand in hand. Not always, but it can. And more times than not. And this idiot goes and shoots up a Sikh temple, probably thinking that they were Muslims. Where the Sikhs are totally peaceful, had nothing to do with it. And look at their reaction. They're all like, oh, they're all forgiving and everything, and they don't want to respond with violence. I mean, I wish we could be as good as the Sikhs, It's all a mess. It's all a mess. Anyway, I had to do that thing about the Jew thing. No, I'm not Jewish, which is funny, I was going to say, even though I'm Protestant. My mother, maybe I got it from my mother's side, but she thought the Jews were great. But she wanted to name me Abraham, and my dad put his foot down. And boy, am I glad about that. But, my mother liked to choose biblical names. I myself like it. I think biblical names are great, naming kids like John and Peter and girls like Rebecca and there's so many great. Eve, I think that's a great name for a woman. Sarah, that's an excellent name, My dad put his foot down and said, name him David. And my middle name, Max, is basically a tradition on my father's side of the family where that's handed down. So the two names, David and Max, are very Jewish. How many, Jewish guys that, name their kids Max, or named Max, or David? you know, King of the Jews. At one point, yeah, I had a roommate once that said I'd make a great Jew because of all the kvetching. Not to say that every Jewish person, it's like anything. The roommate I had in college was an asshole, you know, and it was the whole Hollywood thing. His dad worked for Fox Studios, Jewish, and he was going to follow in his footsteps. I mean, he had like, the path was laid for him. As a kid, he got to hang out on the set of MASH. He had an autographed picture from Muhammad Ali because of all these like doors that were open for him because his dad was in the business. And to be honest, I didn't like the guy. As a person, I didn't like him. But it wasn't because he was Jewish. It's because he was rich. No. That's not entirely true. At first I thought, oh yeah, I've got this roommate who's in the business. Maybe he'll be able to help me out. Bullshit. Guy, fucking selfish, self-centered. Okay, real quick. My gosh, this is going on as long as a regular Fez night. And am I telling myself I was going to make them short from now on? No. I should just do the last minute Fez night. Doesn't that help? Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to talk about my new Twitter account, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm more excited for some stupid reason. I'm more excited about Twitter than I am Facebook. Just Facebook, I don't know. I just don't find Facebook appealing. And so, yeah. Like, you know, I'm kind of, what can I say? I'm kind of in love with celebrity stuff a little bit, you know, a little bit. I'm following Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, also known as Elvira. I'm following her. I'm following Rob Schneider. I'm following Conan O'Brien. I'm following the Angry Dummy. I have 4 followers now. Woohoo! You know, it's like YouTube, though. People will follow somebody in the hopes that they will follow you back. It's like a sub for a sub sort of thing. And when you open a Twitter account and follow me, you will hear such gems as, if we outlaw guns, then only criminals will have guns. The yahoos that say that never mention the police and the military. Right, because we take the guns away from the civilians. The military and police will still have guns. Osama bin Laden was killed under Obama's watch. Romney hates that. The Angry Dummy said something about, well, I'll skip that one. Okay, this one's really stupid. 1 plastic 5-gallon, 2 galvanized, 1 gallon, and 4 kid-sized with matching shovels. This is my bucket list. This one's just random. There's a woman at Trader Joe's that looks like Jacqueline Bouvier. I was reading an article about MIT developed this robotic worm for the military. Check it out. It's pretty cool. You know, it uses artificial muscles and it moves along the ground the same as a earthworm, I guess, by flexing, sort of moving the muscles back and forth and scooting along. Of course, it's not very fast. The neat thing about it is that there's no like gears or moving parts in that sort of way. I mean, they're basically mechanical muscles. So they show them there's a still picture of them hitting it with a hammer. Now, if they put like a radio in it and all these other things, I'm sure that could be destroyed. But the worm itself cannot be harmed by blows, you know, by hitting it with something. It won't break the same way as most robots will. This one I said, with in vitro and vibrators, women only need men for moving heavy objects. Sometimes I'll reference another story like I did this. Oh, the one I was talking about, the mechanical worm. So I put a link. There was a link about the story about the mechanical worm, and I said this may revolutionize the sex toy industry. God, what a sick mind I have. And there was a story on The Onion. There was a video on the Onion News about, in a title, the headline was Weird. Area woman wasn't harassed today. And it goes into this whole thing. She's paralegal. She went to the office. Nobody bothered her. Men didn't stare at her on the street. She wasn't approached. She wasn't touched. You know, all these creepy men in her world left her alone that day. And I tweeted the headline, Weird area woman wasn't harassed today. And then I say, I was at home sick that day. All right, sorry about that. Is it shameless? I'm shameless, right? I'm shameless, trying to get people to follow me on Twitter. But those are the things you're going to be missing out on. All right, everybody, have a great week. I got to go pull my clothes out of the dryer. They're going to wrinkle. Hey, everybody, have a great week. And thank you for watching Ramalama Fez Night. Cheers.